Fear has a large shadow, although he himself is small. Hi, it's Karen here from the Motoromers, and welcome to our latest in the series of wellbeing resource videos that we're putting together, helping us cope through COVID. And today I'm really delighted to be introducing Andy. You may remember did Fitness with Andy a couple of weeks ago, and he is coming to us today with his professional hat on. I think it's fair to say that at the moment we are absolutely surrounded by fear, doubt and uncertainty. And today, Andy, with his experience as a jiu-jitsu master and more recently a program for schools called Streetwise 365, which aims at helping children develop self-esteem, confidence and resilience, he's coming to us to share his perspective on fear and, more importantly, what we can do to control it. This feels like such an important topic. And Andy, it's brilliant to have you. Welcome to our Wellbeing Resource Library video.
Thanks, and thanks for inviting me here to talk about fear, or what I know about fear. Can I take a small issue with your introduction, if I may?
Oh, God.
When you say jiu-jitsu master, I certainly don't consider myself to be that. I just look at myself as I've been on the mats for a long time and I know a bit. And I think that's quite an interesting concept when you look at people who have expertise in an area. And
Yeah.
I know a couple of three people that I very much look up to. And the last thing that they think of themselves is of masters. And I think we're all on a journey of learning.
Yeah.
And the master gives the perception that you know everything. And when you think you know everything, you know little.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite interesting. But it's a pleasure to be here. And if I can be of value to the group by sharing what I know, then I'm more than happy to do that.
Brilliant. Yes. And I consider myself told. Apologies to say.
In a nice way.
Oh, you tell me off so beautifully. So, Andy, perhaps it would be a good starting point for you just to give us a little bit of a background about why you come to us, being able to talk about fear. And also maybe you can just lead into why fear is such a big issue for us right now through COVID.
What I'll start with is my knowledge of fear, and it's ongoing, so I'm building my knowledge, comes from primarily from a gentleman called Coach Tony Blauer.
Okay.
And Coach Tony Blauer is one of the best personal safety instructors in the world. He's probably the best. And he explores this notion of fear and our relationship with it. Now, of course, we talk about it in relation to dealing with difficult situations, confrontations,
Okay.
and how we handle our fears. But he has transferred these skills into what normal life. Our lives are a result of how we manage fear. And do we have a plan to manage fear? And so that's my take on it, really. But I started as a martial artist many years ago, and I got taught all these fantastic skills to deal with somebody that wanted to cause you harm. I was enthralled by these skills, and I learned them year after year, and I taught them year after year. But I always realized something was missing from my understanding and actually how I taught these skills. And I didn't know what that was. It was like the missing part of a puzzle, and I kept looking around searching for this missing part, and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Then I came into contact with Coach Blauer, and he had some fantastic skills, but the one part of the course that really stood out for me was when he talked about fear with respect to how you deal with difficult situations.
Really?
And it was like a light bulb moment, and I went, that's the missing link. If I'm dealing with a difficult situation and I can't handle my emotions, I can never get to my toolbox of skills that I need. I kind of get frozen like the rabbit in the headlights. I kind of get shone on. I kind of look at the fear. I don't realize that it's fear, and I just think it's my body shutting down. And funnily enough, actually, it's your body getting ready for action. We don't recognize it.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to fear, really, through the jiu-jitsu, but now it's taken me into a wider understanding how it affects every decision that we make collectively.
So that missing link, Andy, that you had, where you had that light bulb moment, is that about focusing on recognizing you're in fear and the emotions attached to it? Is that what we're saying?
I think it's a complete skill that's set that first and foremost says fear exists, we have a relationship with it.
Okay.
And until we accept that, we won't see it as a driver. And once we do that, we can see fuel as a driver to our actions. Now, does it make us less scared? No. And nor should we be, because understand that fear is there for a reason.
Sure.
We need to be fearful of certain things. Be fearful of gravity if you step off a high wall. Be fearful of a speeding car because it's going to run you over. So fear there is there, I see, as an educator and a fuel that we use to really move forwards in our lives and to make some really difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't stop us being scared. And being scared, actually, if we can control it, I believe is a good thing.
Yeah, and in life, it's really important because of that decision-making process. I guess that the problem we have is if it's an acute situation, that's okay because our body's geared up for that, the fight and flight syndrome. It's when it's sustained, when fear is with us all the time, that's when it starts destroying us from the inside out, I guess.
I think it does if you don't recognize what it's doing to you. It's really good to think of fear on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And at one of the end of the spectrum is no fear. And that's an unhealthy place to be in.
Okay.
And there used to be the t-shirts many years ago of no fear.
Yeah.
Guess what? We all fear something.
Yeah.
You can be a big burly soldier that can run into bullets. And then you say to that soldier, could you pick up that guitar and play to those school children? And the fear in his eyes, you will see it.
Okay.
So we all have our unique relationship with fear. But no fear at the one end of the spectrum is not a good place to be. And of course, at the other end of the spectrum is what I call complete fear or almost hysteria, where we believe that we cannot possibly solve that problem. Now, in between is this spectrum of stimulus in our lives, things that happen, and we can relate it in a moment to the COVID crisis, and our response to that. And what we need to be doing is operating up and down that scale, understanding that sometimes it will go too high, to step away from it, and then to start to put some actions into place that bring us back down the scale. And that's how I look at it, very much as a scale. And where do we exist on the scale when we're dealing with difficult things?
So you mentioned there about the role that our emotions have on this spectrum. From your perspective, when we're looking at fear and the associated emotions, what sort of emotions might we experience?
What happens when we face any kind of danger? And understanding danger could be, if I take you for an example, you were in Spain and you had a danger of not getting back to the UK before everything started to shut down. That was a very real danger for you in your life. And immediately when we're faced by danger, we have what we call a fear spike.
Okay.
And different drugs go around our body and we can't stop that happening.
Okay.
You would have had a fear spike. And what happens with a fear spike is your body at a physiological level changes. And what happens is your hands will start to sweat. Here, your voice will change, your heart rate speeds up, and you get a new body and new mind to deal with that problem. Now, what happens for most people is they don't recognize that as a reaction to danger, and they think, I'm panicking. You're not panicking, you're actually getting ready to take action.
Yeah.
So yes, your body changes. The different emotions you will go through is once again being in what we call the washing machine. And very often is if you take fear, F-E-A-R, we can have it as false expectations or false evidence appearing real. What we start to do in our future is we start to paint a picture, a negative picture that hasn't yet happened, that draws those negative emotions into that. So we are visualizing something. Oh, I might not be able to get back to the UK. What's going to happen with my mum? What's going to happen to me and Miles? And what happens is that starts that cycle, what we call the washing machine of emotions, and we're visualizing, picturing bad things that might happen in the future, but they haven't happened yet. At that point, we need to put the brakes on.
Which comes back to knowing that fear exists and what that associated emotion is for you in that moment. So that capturing that is really important, isn't it? Almost being the observer, seeing that existing for you.
And I would suggest that is the hardest thing to do in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, but once you've done it once, you have an awareness of, oh, I've just jumped back into the fear loop. And I think that's the key. It's not to be in the washing machine. It's not to have the emotions.
Yeah.
It's to have an awareness where you can step back and say, that's where I am. I need to move out of this washing machine.
We notice that moment where the fear has spiked.
All of us, I would say collectively, I would say as a nation, as a world, have gone through a fear spike.
Yeah.
And we have been taken outside of our comfort zone, and that's essentially what danger is, fear spike. And we've been thrown into this new world.
Yeah.
So it's quite right and proper that we have a fear spike around this new crisis. And if we had no fear spike, we would be out there socializing, doing the things that we do. We have no fear, and we all know the dangers in this crisis of doing that. It's quite right and proper that all of us have had a fear spike, and it's quite right and proper that it takes time for us to become accustomed to how we are going through the emotions. Okay. And I think sometimes you let yourself go through the emotions, and that's okay. Now, once we've done that, a big long word here is psychology of intimidation. And that simply means when we allow something else to intimidate us.
Okay.
And if we allow COVID-19 to intimidate us, i.e., I might catch it off the post, I might go to the shops here. If we are on the receiving end and feel that we can't do anything, we will stay in that washing machine of emotions and almost have what we call a victim mindset. I can't do anything. So we accept where we are, but actually where we need to move to is what we call the challenge door. And that's a place that we must step through.
Okay.
And that simply means, how do we stop becoming the victim and we start to take control?
Okay.
And what we do is we make a plan. What is your plan to deal with COVID-19? What was your plan to come home to England? What is my plan as a martial artist to deal with aggressive situations? As soon as we start to make a plan and take small steps, and if we're talking about COVID, we've spoken about this, what can I do to take control in my life to stop me and my family contracting COVID? So the way I look at it is that I'm the bodyguard that needs to stand guard at the door of my house for my family. And since I did that, I have felt more in control of what's going on around me. And maybe that's something, and I know all your listeners over this period of time will have developed their own little routines on a daily basis. And I think that's part of the plan and allows you to take back control in a situation that has so many variables. I think in this current time that people need to be very selective about the news that they listen to, and they need to gain the evidence of what's going on, not the opinions. And from the evidence, they create their plan. And I think if one is bombarded on an hour-to-hour basis with different opinions, different thoughts, what's happening around the world, we go back, or it forces us back into that fear loop, into the washing machine. And we once again live in uncertainty. Always make sure, one, you're getting the facts, and two, it's to be gentle with yourself and realize in these changing, dynamic, challenging times, you will have fear spikes. You will hear a piece of news, something will happen to you personally, and you will jump back into that fear loop. You will stay there for a while, but the key is to get the awareness that you step back and you're looking at yourself.
Yeah.
And almost with a smile on your face saying, look what I just did. Now, where's my plan gone? Is it a good plan? Do I need to change it? Guess what? I'm back in control.
Sometimes it's just about catching where you are, stopping, and then taking that breath. I used to use the analogy of the traffic light system. You find yourself at red in your high stress, and then you stop, think, and then you choose what action at green you're going to take, whether it's the plan or how do I step out of the washing machine. And if you can use that analogy of just recognizing where you are, stopping, breathing, and then taking back your control, that seems like a really nice way of being able to handle some of this fear that is so prevalent for us at the minute.
And if I just expand on the breath, I think we undervalue the part that the breath plays in our decision making.
Absolutely.
If and when we have a fear spike, what happens to your breath? It shortens, doesn't it?
Yeah, you breathe up.
Decision making is made up here generally, and what we do when we shorten our breath is we restrict the oxygen to our brain. Now, is that going to affect how you think and the decisions you make? Of course it is. That is why we always say, if you think of any time in your lives that you were truly under stress, or you have to face something that you don't want to face, what did you do? You took a breath, didn't you? If you had a bump in your car and you had to get out to an angry motorist, you go, here we go then.
Yeah.
And that is key, like you say, Karen, to making good decisions. And it is that breath that will give you the emotional space to step out of the washing machine and see where you are at. As I said, does it stop you being scared? No. But like you say, it will help you make a quality decision in a difficult circumstance.
Rather than getting caught up in all the emotion, which is natural. Although if we can, through this talk, just make it clear that we have a choice about being in the washing machine or not, by just understanding the washing machine even exists. And with the breath, with observing where we are, we can then stop that process and make it so much easier for us to deal with, I guess. What
we got to do is catch ourselves, because what we realize is that we are what we call our internal coach. Our coach sits in our head, and it's that voice. And generally speaking, that voice can be very negative, and it will try and keep you in that washing machine. And it does that by sending you these negative pictures. This might happen, that might happen. What if the border shuts? And you visualize the worst, and you let these negative pictures control your present actions and emotions.
Yeah.
What we have to do is we change the picture, we change the voice, the coach in our minds, to a more positive picture. We become more motivated. We are unique on this planet where we can actually do that. And we empower the right actions for really difficult situations.
I think it's about recognizing that we are far more resilient and confident and resourceful than we can even imagine. And it's not until you have a situation like this that you realize how capable we actually are as human beings.
I know certain people are stuck all around the world, the people that follow you. I know they are incredibly difficult situations, but they will come through this. And the interesting thing about resilience is it's, I think, an overused word, both in the business sense and in education. But when you really dig down to resilience, what is it? And I believe it's competence.
Okay.
And competence is you have a belief in your own skill set to sort something out. And if you believe whatever you're faced with, whatever dangers, that you have the skills, the competency, i.e. making that plan, sticking and reviewing the plan, being scared, that's okay, but jumping back to the plan, I believe that truly makes you a resilient person. You just have a set of skills and an awareness that says, actually, whatever you throw at me, I can respond in the best way for the best outcome.
There's a lovely motto that the Isle of Man have, which is where we used to live for 18 years. And it's the 3 legs of man. And it says in Latin, whichever way you throw me, I will stand. We will get through this. I think it's so important to acknowledge that. And
there will be life outside of COVID-19. Sometimes it's just hard to see that at the moment. Another nice saying is, you cannot be brave if you weren't once first scared. And what you've got in your community are people being brave every single day. Yep. But because they feel it's their own little battle, they don't feel brave. They feel scared. But actually what they're being is incredibly brave.
And I think everybody is doing that. The courage it takes to get up in the morning, to follow the routines that you know are good for you, the courage to not turn on the media, the courage to actually get down to do some exercise when you really don't want to. They might sound small moments of bravery and courage, although they're absolutely enormous for this situation that is so completely new to us.
And I would say that your small gains will make the big picture.
Yeah,
and like you say, that could be getting up if they're in a van or if they're stuck in a flat, and just wiping down the surfaces and being regimented about that. It might be that you say, I will only watch the news at the briefing at 5 o'clock. That's where I'm going to get my facts from. I'm going to stay off the internet. I'm going to stay off the chat groups, etc. So I think that's bravery, putting in the routines that you know will stop you having a fear spike.
And actually remembering that there are so many things we can do that are in our control. So we can control what we think, what we feel, how we behave, everything that's in our immediate vicinity and that is within us. We put so much of our energy, don't we, into things that we can't control, like getting angry with the government and angry with all these conspiracy theories, and we get fraught about things we see on Twitter, and actually we can't do anything about those things. So only focus on things you can change. And that's all about you and your immediate vicinity. It makes life a whole heap less stressful and fearful. Andy, there's some really great things that you've talked about with us this morning. I wonder if, just as a way of wrapping up, you could do us a bit of a summary of where we are with fear, and more importantly, what we can do to control it.
Just a couple of things. I think people talk about, and this is from Coach Blauer directly, they talk about being fearless. There's no such thing. What we have to do, if we put a hyphen between fear and less, that's how we need to be. We need to fear less. And there's no such thing as no fear. What we need to do is know, K-N-O-W, fear.
That's brilliant.
And there are 3 things that we need to do, and we've touched upon all of them in this discussion. Number 1 is to recognize that we have a relationship with fear.
Okay.
Even if we don't recognize, we have that relationship. The second thing is to know when we're having a fear spike and we've jumped in the washing machine. And the third thing is to know that we can take control. Brilliant. And we take control by making a plan that we put into action. It doesn't stop us being scared, but it gives us that sense of control in our lives.
Any last words you'd like to share with us before we close today?
To recognize fear, to grab it by the collar, look it in the eye and say, come on, let's dance.
Wonderful. Absolutely brilliant. It's actually really fascinating when you peel back the layers of fear, because we don't normally have this sort of conversation amongst ourselves, to actually be able to strip fear right back and see it for what it is, and to see that actually it is almost an illusion that we create. Its shadow is big, although fear itself is small. And I think that's what you've helped us to do today, Andy, is just to realize we are in so much more control than we think. And that's really empowering. So thank you for empowering us to not get caught up in this washing machine and to step away from it. It's absolutely great. Thank you. I genuinely hope that what we've chatted about today gives people out there some hope that actually they can handle this fear. It is doable, and this will be over, and we will be stronger as a result of it. This is Karen from the Motoromers for now, signing out, and we will see you on the next video. Bye for now.